This is Haydock High reporting for the BBC School Report. Here are today's top stories.
After 25 years, have people's memory at Hillsborough faded away, or are the 96 still being remembered?
Is anxiety a growing problem for the school children? And is the government doing enough to tackle it?
And Comet Relief. After a record-breaking total at this year's event, we take a look back at how it has changed over the years. On April 15th, 1989, the Hillsborough disaster left 96 Liverpool supporters dead, one of the most horrific accidents the sporting world has ever witnessed. Now approaching the 26th anniversary of the horrific date, do people still mourn and remember those who died? Dana and Lewis report.
Hillsborough disaster, a tragedy that brought Liverpool to its knees, not in shame, but in prayer, and left 96 dead.
It all started on a normal Saturday afternoon. By 2 p.m, the grounds were full of fans who wanted to watch the final. By 3 p.m, too many fans were pushed into Leppings Lane, causing a large cut in pens 3 and 4.
The coroner promised that out of the 96 who died, all were dead by 3:15. According to some, this was the start of the huge government cover-up.
Next month will mark the 26th anniversary of the disaster, and thus there is no certain answer as to who was to blame.
What were your thoughts on the Hillsborough disaster?
Well, obviously my thoughts are that it was a disaster, a national disaster, and the impacts were massive. Obviously it happened before I was born, when I was very, very young. So impact in regards to myself, not so much, but knowledge of the disaster obviously has hit home, being such a fanatic of sport.
Has the Hillsborough disaster affected you and your family in any way?
It hasn't affected me personally, because obviously I wasn't alive, but obviously when I grew up and I heard about it, it was more or less a few years back, or it could have even been last year when it was the 25th anniversary, and the Justice Collection did a song for it, and that's when I talked about it a lot with my mum and dad. And it didn't affect us as a family because none of my relatives actually went to that game specifically, but obviously we could imagine what it's like to lose a member to something so disastrous, and then to be blamed for it as well is quite something that would affect you all, yeah.
Do you think the media's response was justified at that time?
The media's response was so sporadic. It's the amount of lies that were told at the time. As I've grown older and things have unfolded, the fans and the families have been adamant about the truth since the beginning, and the persecution of those families and fans by the media is now obviously what's unfolding. As a community, as Liverpool was a community, we knew the truth. We knew what had happened. It was just getting out there, and it was portrayed in, I won't mention any names, it was portrayed in several areas, that it was the fans' fault, and that it was subsequently the blame put on them and the case closed. And thankfully, fighting for justice for the 96 has started to unravel all those pieces.
What about what Duncanfield recently said in court? Do you think what he did was right at the time?
Unless you put yourself in someone else's shoes like that, I couldn't imagine the responsibility he had. What the problem is with Duncanfield is the lies that he protected. In the case that he could have told the truth 26 years ago and said, shortly after, held his hands up and said, yeah, I lied, I panicked in the situation and should have closed the gate or not opened it in the first place. And if he'd have said that, I think the feelings towards him would be greatly different. I think that people would be more empathetic with him. But certainly after holding that for so long, I'm sure there's a lot of ill feeling towards him.
What are your thoughts on how the media handled the situation at the beginning?
I don't think they handled it really well. They blamed it all on the fans when it was obviously not going to be their fault. But that's also the stories that they were given from the police and such, so that's what they were just going to put out on the headlines and news.
Still to this day, people swear loved ones were still alive past 3:15.
People blame services, but the police did try to revive people, and firefighters had been called to get bolt cutters to cut the fences, but they were blocked by the crowd.
With Duncanfield in court recently, only a matter of days ago, it has been confirmed by himself that he was responsible for some of the incidents that happened on that day.
Thanks for that, Lewis and Dana. Well, have any of you heard of anxiety before?
Well, it's a growing problem with the youths all across Britain.
Here's Charlotte and Jade to tell us more.
So what is anxiety? We have all heard of it, but it is estimated that 1 in 6 young people in the UK experience anxiety at some point in their lives. This means that up to 5 people in your class of 30 may be living with anxiety.
Anxiety is the main symptom of several conditions: post-traumatic stress disorder, social anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and phobias. Recently, anxiety has become a major concern in schools, especially during exams. If anxiety is overwhelming, then your ability to succeed may be badly affected. The feeling of stress or anxiety during exams can be linked to many factors, including being poorly prepared, maybe you've had a bad experience on a past exam, feeling anxious, maybe you're a bit of a worrier, or generally feeling ill on the day.
It can often be difficult to discuss how you feel with other people, especially if you think that no one else feels the same or that they won't understand what you're going through. However, in most schools, help and guidance is offered to those who need and want it. To go further into detail, here is Mrs Griffiths to explain exactly what schools can provide.
So, what does the school do to help students with anxiety?
I think the issues of anxiety arise quite frequently, and they arise for many different reasons. The issue we have is being able to identify that. And one of the things that you've got to be able to do is provide a very solid relationship between every child in school and somebody, whether it be 1 member of staff, 6 members of staff, or whatever. So we tried to create a school which has very much more of a family atmosphere than most. We tried to make sure that every child has somebody to turn to. We tried to create a mentoring system so that actually not only do you see the kid on a regular basis, but you can identify as a result of that if things are not quite going well, you know. Because it's not always that a child feels confident enough to blurt something out. Sometimes it's just a change in behaviour. So we're quite well positioned to do that because we have a policy of continuity of care, and we have mentoring, and they see the same form tutor every day. And as a result of that, relationships are probably have quite a big part to play in it.
Many schools have now started to develop a solution to keep their students stress-free. Students are advised to plan, seek guidance and help from tutors, take breaks as sitting and reading for long periods of time can cause you to lose concentration, revise notes, even something as simple as taking deep breaths can help to keep the bad feelings away.
Everyone has feelings of anxiety. You may feel worried about a doctor's appointment or worried about a test at school.
During times like these, feeling this way is completely normal. However, some people find it hard to control their worries.
Their feelings of anxiety are more persistent and recurring and can often affect their day-to-day lifestyle.
However, with proper help and support, feelings of anxiety can be put at ease and possibly even make them go away.
And finally, it doesn't seem like 27 years since Comet Relief first began.
Well, over the years, the charity has raised over £1 billion.
We got Caitlin to take a look at how Comet Relief has changed over the years.
Over the past few years, fundraising events have become more prominent to the public eye, and with Comet Relief now over for the year, it's time to see how it's changed over the years.
Lenny Henry was the creator of the charity in 1988. He and other comedians decided to do something funny for money, to raise money to give to people all over the world who need it. In 1988, they raised £50 million. There has been drastic change since then, with this year's event raising £78 million. In the UK, more and more charities are appearing. Schools are trying to raise more and more money to support them. Events are lasting longer and longer, with charities like Comet Relief being advertised earlier than they used to be. This year, adverts started over a month before the actual event, in order to raise more for the main fundraising. This year at Haydock High, the preparations for events started early, with the school fully supporting Comet Relief's aims and motives. There has been a lot of fundraising events this year that each raised a fair bit of money. From assemblies to bake-offs, the school have done their part for charity. As you can see, I came down here to take a look myself. Several of the school's teachers took part in a flash mob to support the cause, at a surprise assembly to the well-known song Happy. We have interviewed the deputy head teacher, Mrs Griffiths, to see how she thinks Comic Relief has changed over time and how schools are doing more to fundraise. Do you think that Comic Relief is a worthwhile cause?
I think it's a brilliant cause. I love the fact that it doesn't just engage you in thinking about people all over the world, but it actually engages you in thinking about folk in your own country who are not as well off as you are. I think it's a worthwhile cause because, do you know what, it's such fun. It gives an opportunity for old birds like me to get involved in something that's a bit daft.
You enjoy raising money for Comic Relief?
Yes, I love it. I love it because it's fun and it's a bit silly. And there's potential in everybody, I think, even at great age or in youth, to be a bit silly. And why not? It makes you feel good. It makes you feel good to be doing things for other people.
Has events like Comic Relief inspired you to do more fundraising in school?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, because I've seen the impact that it has on the staff, on the school as a whole. I love the fact that we all come together to do this thing, which is just a bit funny, and people remember that. You know, you might forget your occasional maths lesson, you might forget your occasional history lesson, you might forget your occasional PE lesson, but you don't forget the sort of the unusual things that happen on Comic Relief Day. And if that's what raises the profile, and it makes people feel good about giving to others, so yes, I think it's fabulous.
The school started early, using different ways to encourage the kids to raise money, by using different activities to get everybody involved. We can safely say that Comic Relief has been bigger and better this year, raising a huge amount of money. So huge, in fact, that America decided to make their own version of the charity. I personally can't wait to watch this.
Thanks, Caitlin. Well, that's it for now.
Thanks for watching and have a great day.